Welcome back to the If You Are podcast. If you are new here, my name is Alexa. I'm 22 years old, and my podcast is mainly about my faith, and I sprinkle in a little bit of my personal life here and there, but mostly this podcast is based on my faith. So yeah, we're going to be reading Isaiah 4. We're going to be unpacking a lot in Isaiah 4. Yeah, why not? Let's get into it. So Isaiah 4 starts with, "On that day, 7 women will seize one man, saying, 'We will eat our own bread and provide our own clothing. Just let us bear your name. Take away our disgrace.'" When it says, "Just let us bear your name, take away our disgrace," in my notes, I put, instead it would be enough to simply take the man of a husband so that it would take away the reproach of being unmarried and childless. In a broader sense, this shows that it is not good for women to be too desperate for marriage. They may marry unwisely and for the wrong reasons. It is also bad when women do not expect their husbands to provide for the household. In a sense, 7 women after one man, it really just talks about like sometimes the desperation. As women, sometimes we get kind of desperate for a partner or for the idea of marriage, and we settle for an average man when we shouldn't settle for an average man. We should settle for a man that's seeking after God's heart. When you're in high school, you have this idea of like, okay, I'm going to go to school. You have this plan set out, right? These expectations, and you're like, okay, and you think in your head like, okay, I'm going to do this at this age, and I'm going to have a kid at this age, and I'm going to be married at this age. There's people who are out there and they plan out their entire lives, right in front of them, and then it doesn't happen, or it happens, but it just didn't happen in the way they thought it would, and it just fails. Right, the life plan that they set out before themselves, it fails. I feel like nowadays people say marriage is just a contract, it's just a paper. It's not. It's deeper than that. It's way deeper than that. In the Bible, marriage is seen as a covenant. Your first covenant is between you and God. That's your relationship with God. Your second most important covenant is the person that you choose to be with for the rest of your life, your spouse. And in this point in time, women just wanted to settle. Women just wanted to settle. They were desperate. They were in desperation. So many things are being talked about in this one verse. Marriage, women being desperate to just be married. Even if they marry unwisely, they just want to be married. I also put here that the daughters of Zion will have a few men to choose from as husbands. It's pretty wild, honestly. Verse 2, "On that day, the branch of the Lord will be beautiful and glorious, and the fruit of the land will be the pride and glory of Israel's survivors." And the next couple verses, "Whoever remains in Zion and whoever is left in Jerusalem will be called holy, all in Jerusalem written in the book of life. When the Lord has washed away the filth of the daughters of Zion and cleansed the blood guilt from the heart of Jerusalem by a spirit of judgment and a spirit of burning, then the Lord will create a cloud of smoke by day and a glowing flame of fire by night over the entire site of Mount Zion and over its assemblies. For there will be a canopy over all the glory, and there will be a shelter for shade from heat by day and a refuge and shelter from storm and rain." So the words that stood out to me from Isaiah 4 was branch, cleanse, and burning. A spirit of burning, a glowing flame of fire. Those words remind me of the word pruning. Pruning in Greek means kledevo. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Probably not. Kledevo. In other words, it means to cleanse or clear. Like a gardener when you cut its branches. I don't know if a gardener will cut its branches will cut the plant when it's dead, when it's already dead. I'm assuming you cut off parts of the plant that is already dead, right? And then it regrows and it produces fruit. It becomes something more beautiful than what it was before. So when I think of pruning, I think of that. I think there are certain things that need to die within ourselves, spiritually speaking, obviously not like literal. Like I'm not telling you like, some people just want to take the Bible too literally. I'm not saying you need to actually die and kill yourself. Like, no. Like, spiritually speaking, like some things have to die inside of us. Like in my first episode when I talked about forgiveness, that was one of the first things that had to go. For unforgiveness and bitterness in my heart, that had to go. And there's certain things in our lives and in our innate nature that need to die and they need to go. The selfishness, the pride, the ego, the lustfulness, the bitterness, things like that. And I'll say for myself, and I'll use myself as an example because I don't want people to be like, oh, you're always talking and you never want to talk about yourself, whatever. No. Like, I'll use myself for an example. Like how I talked about in the first episode, forgiveness was the first to go. Another thing that is something that I'm currently going through is like selflessness. I've always been the type of person to put myself first. I've never, and that's not to say that I stomp all over people. I don't do that. That's not what I'm saying. But I've always been the type of person to put myself first because I've learned to be very independent, I guess you can say. I had a lot of pride in being independent. You can do it all on your own. You can do what you need to do. And it really got to me, and I became very overly independent. I thought I could do everything. I thought I was superwoman. I thought I could do this and I could do that. But no, I was only human. I was burning out because I was trying to do everything. I was trying to do everything that I could all at the same time, being everywhere all at the same time. And I was burning out. And I realized very quickly that I became very independent. Like I'm very, like, it's in my nature. I've always been a very independent person. I'm very bold. I'm not shy. When I go out, I go by myself. I don't need to be with a group of friends. Like I like my own company. I like my own company. So I got really, really used to that. And it was to the point to where, like, okay, I put myself before other people. Like I always think of myself first. So because I had that selfishness in me, I've always like put myself first before anybody else. I worked as a nanny. I was working as a nanny. And obviously working as a nanny, you're working with kids. And what is the first thing to go when you have kids? What do you prioritize the most when you have kids? You prioritize your kids. Your kids come before you. So now I was in a position to where when I was working as a nanny, I was putting those kids before me. And it was hard because I would do everything around their schedule. I would wake up around their schedule. Everything that I was doing was revolved around them. And it was hard because, like I said, I do everything for me. I'm very, like, I have my own schedule, my own routine, my own thing, right? And I had to let that go real quick. That had to fly out of the window real quick. I had to find new ways. Like, like it became a thing of like I said, I was putting them before me. It wasn't about me anymore. So that's one of the things that I'm learning as I go, that I'm learning to put other people before me. Because even Jesus in the Bible, it says that he came to serve, not to be served. So that's one way that God is pruning me. God is teaching me to put others before me. I can't be sitting here in front of a camera preaching about God and then like I turn around and I turn off the camera and I'm like a completely selfish person. I have to unlearn that independency that was kind of instilled in me. That's just in my nature, right? Because that's what I was taught. And like I said, it was hard because that's not naturally like the type of person I am. And for everybody, pruning, it looks different. There's purpose in pruning. Sometimes we take pruning as a punishment. We take certain things as punishment from God and we like to point the finger at God, but sometimes it's not God punishing us. Because when you are being pruned, you learn to abide in Christ. You learn to depend on him and you bear the fruit of who he is. You become more like him. Spiritual pruning enhances spiritual growth by removing whatever inhibits spiritual growth. There are certain things that we have to let go of when we try to grow in our faith. And it looks different for everybody. Like sometimes it's not selfishness. Sometimes it's not unforgiveness. Sometimes you just have to let go of people. You have to let go of situations. You have to let go of trying to manipulate and fix this and that, fix this person, fix that person. You want to force this person to love you. Yeah, yada, yada, yada. The list goes on. Like sometimes it's not things, it's people and situations that you have to let go of. Because we can't say we love God and we're trying to do everything for him, right? But we're still holding on to certain people in certain situations. Like God is going to call us to let those things go. Pruning for us can take the form of suffering or hardship. It might look like difficulty in a relationship, trouble in your marriage or family, loss or grief, disappointment, hopelessness, being confronted by our own sin or circumstances that seem unfair. No discipline seems enjoyable at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it. Yeah, being pruned, it hurts. Being pruned should bring us closer to God, not bring us away. Because if you only seek after God when everything is good, you're only going to seek him when it's convenient for you. And it becomes a habit. It's like somebody who calls you and they just call you because they need something. That's how sometimes it feels like when we go to God when it's convenient for us. But we need to be dependent on God in all circumstances. Not just when we're suffering, not just when things are good. Suffering and hardship and being pruned, it should be bringing us closer to Christ, not away. And what does that mean? To abide in Christ and to cling to him in times of pruning, in times of hardship. in times of uncertain circumstances. It means to remain in him and stay connected to him. Stay connected to the vine. John 15:5, I am the vine, you are the branches. The one who remains in me and I in him produces much fruit, because you can do nothing without me. If anyone does not remain in me, he is thrown aside like a branch and he withers. They gather them, throw them into the fire, and they are burned. If you are making plans without God, not including him, and it's your plans and not his, it's going to fail. It's kind of like, think of it like a house. Like when you build a house, like you have to have all the right material, right? And a good foundation, because if you don't have a good foundation, it's going to fall. It's going to fall and crumble. Psalm 127, unless the Lord is the foundation, the building won't stand. Unless the Lord builds a house, those who build it labor in vain. God is our foundation. He needs to be our foundation, because if he's not our foundation, when plans fail, like our faith is going to be like wavering. Like it's going to be like here one day, the next day it's not going to be there. Like you need to ask yourself, like, are you inviting God into the conversation? Like when it comes to your plans? And in John 15, if anyone does not abide in me, he is cast out as a branch and is withered. What does that mean? Jesus warns his disciples that failing to abide means that life fails. A branch only has life as it is connected to the stalk of the vine. A disciple only spiritually lives as they are connected to the master. Open up to the process of that it might hurt, but there's purpose in being pruned by God. Have you ever heard of somebody be like, I'm going to stop doing this and these are my New Year's resolutions, and they fail? And they fail because they're doing it on their own, not with God. When you do things with God, purpose comes with it. But when you do things alone, there's no purpose to it, because we don't give ourselves purpose to do things. God gives us purpose to do things. When he gives us a plan, when he gives us a decision to make, there's purpose in it. There's purpose in every season that we go in with God. Nothing is wasted. But as humans, like, we do things and sometimes it fails, right? And then that time, all that, it goes to waste. It goes hand in hand with Isaiah 4, because it talks about the spirit of judgment. It talks about a branch. It talks about a flaming fire, a pressure, the pruning, like that pressure. Like you feel that pressure on you. You feel the pressure of like, God is molding me. He's shaping me, and it hurts. But like I said, there's purpose in it. There's purpose in the pruning. Nothing that he does goes to waste. But we have to open ourselves up to the process, because if we don't and we try to do things in our own strength, it will fail. It'll fail. And knowing that he's our protector, that everything that he does for us is out of love, it's not out of punishment. There's so many more things that I could talk about in Isaiah 4, but I kind of just wanted to stay on the topic of the branch, because that's what stuck out to me the most. And I feel like that was what's being highlighted to me in that passage. There's purpose in every season that we're in with God. Thank you guys for listening to the If You Are podcast, and I will see you guys in the next one.